everyone who's registered. Feel free to share this recording widely after the webinar. For our agenda today, we'll be giving an overview of policy priorities, have an amazing grassroots panel planned for you, and an exceptional panel of state legislators who will join us later to discuss opportunities for New York to alleviate hunger in next year's session. If you have any questions, please add them via Zoom's Q&A feature, and we'll try to address them in the chat. Without further ado, we will get started with a brief presentation on this year's policy priorities. To start this presentation off, we're going to set the stage and talk about food insecurity in New York State. So food insecurity is characterized by limited or uncertain access to adequate food due to limited economic resources. The USDA found an average of 1 in 9 New York households, or about 875,000 families, were unable to acquire enough food due to lack of money or other resources in the 2020 to 2022 time period. In New York, some of the counties with the highest rates of food insecurity among adults include Bronx, Queens, Kings, Herkimer, and Oswego. Rates of food insecurity for Black and Hispanic New Yorkers were twice as high as the rates of those for white New Yorkers.
Thanks, Brianna. My name is Krista Hestorfer. I'm here from Hunger Solutions New York, a statewide anti-hunger organization focused on maximizing federal nutrition programs like SNAP, WIC, school meals, summer nutrition programs, and more. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, is our nation's largest anti-hunger program. It provides monthly EBT benefits families can use to buy food at grocery stores, farmers markets, and other participating retailers. In the process, SNAP supports New York's economy. Every $1 in federally funded SNAP benefits generates an estimated $1.50 in economic activity. Here in New York, more than 2.9 million people rely on SNAP to put food on the table. That includes many of our seniors on fixed incomes and families with children. In addition to its direct benefits, SNAP also helps families qualify for other nutrition assistance programs, including WIC, free school meals, and summer EBT. And I'll take just a moment to share about that last one, which may be new to some folks in the audience today. Summer EBT is a new program that launched in 2024. It provides food benefits to eligible low-income children during the summer break from school. The benefits are federally funded, just like SNAP, but there is state funding needed for an administrative match for summer EBT. So in addition to the other programs and priorities we'll discuss today, we encourage lawmakers to ensure sufficient administrative funding to support strong access, outreach, and customer service for that brand new federal program. And throughout today's forum, you'll hear from us about several different ways that New York can maximize and build on federal nutrition programs through strategic state investments. By supporting outreach, providing state supplements to build on the programs, and funding our emergency food programs to help fill the gaps, lawmakers can ensure all New Yorkers have the food they need. Given the scale and effectiveness of SNAP, there are few anti-hunger investments more impactful than those that expand SNAP participation. And we know there are more New Yorkers who could benefit from the program, but they're not connected yet for a variety of reasons. Some people don't know about SNAP or don't realize that they may qualify, while others need help navigating the application process, from completing and submitting an application form to gathering their documents. Fortunately, the Nutrition Outreach and Education Program, or NOEP, can help. NOEP is a statewide network of SNAP navigators. Hunger Solutions New York manages this network at the state level through a contract with the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, and we currently have 88 SNAP navigators operating in community-based organizations across the state. These navigators conduct SNAP outreach in their communities, provide free and confidential pre-screenings to help families determine if they may be eligible for SNAP, and help with every step of the application process. They also help families connect with other programs and services in their community. Last year alone, NOEP helped more than 34,000 households successfully apply for SNAP. The incredible reach of this program is in part because of a $2 million legislative add-on that has allowed us to expand NOEP services in high-need areas. We're deeply grateful to Senator Roxanne Persaud and Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas for championing that funding. For the upcoming budget, we urge lawmakers to sustain that elevated level of funding, keeping the $2 million add-on intact to ensure continued SNAP navigators in all parts of the state.
Thank you so much, Krista. Good morning, everybody. My name is Cooper Rowan. I'm the policy manager here at Field and Fork Network. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization who administers the Double Up Food Bucks New York program. So at Field and Fork Network, our mission is to connect communities to innovative solutions that foster a sustainable food system. And the Double Up Food Bucks New York program is a SNAP matching nutrition incentive program that matches SNAP dollars, dollar for dollar, up to $20 per day. And this program is offered at a variety of different vendors across New York State, including farmers markets, mobile markets, farm stands, and small and large retail grocery stores. We currently have a goal to be included in all 50, to have sites offered in all 57 counties outside of New York City by the end of 2027. We have grown rapidly in the last few years and saw a huge uptake in the program during the COVID era pandemic. That is a time when a lot of programs saw a decrease in usage, but obviously, as everyone here on this call knows, hunger and food insecurity rose sharply during that time, and this was a time for us to step up, and we vastly and widely expanded the program, and we aren't stopping there and are continuing to expand across New York State. This includes a recent launch with our partners at Tops Friendly Markets. We recently launched at 17 different Tops Friendly Markets locations across New York State, including in the Syracuse and Jamestown regions and other areas in Western New York and all across the state. This is an amazing partnership that will allow us to meet SNAP shoppers where they're already shopping and allows them to double their dollars, like I mentioned, dollar for dollar, up to $20 per day to bring home more fresh fruits and veggies to their families. We call the program a win-win-win. It's a win for families because they get to bring home more nutritious produce. It's a win for farmers, as New York farmers are able to get connected to additional vendors and sell more of their crops. And it's a win for local economies because this program allows our partners to offer this program in these communities and really see that economic boost from an increase of these produce sales in their local storefronts. And so this year, as we have for the past few years, it is critical to have this fiscal year 2026 New York State budget sustain full Double Up Food Bucks funding for $2 million to ensure that this program can continue its current footprint and continue expanding across New York State. The last thing we want to do is tear this program away from communities that have been widely using it for the past few years.
Thank you, Cooper. My name is Alyssa Harrington. Good morning, everyone. I'm with Feeding New York State, which is the state association of New York's 10 food banks who work in partnership with about 3,000 shelters, pantries, and other community-based organizations. Pleasure to be here today to talk a little bit more about SNAP. So first, I'd like to start by talking about some challenges with the SNAP minimum benefit. So to provide a little bit of context, during the pandemic, Congress provided additional SNAP benefits to recipients, helping to lift 500,000 New Yorkers out of poverty. And we know that that also helped by allowing people to have more choices to buy more healthy and nutritious foods. However, after the pandemic, those rolled back, and now SNAP recipients currently receive as little as $23 per month, or less than $1 per day in benefits. We know that this is woefully inadequate. It barely allows for someone to buy a few days worth of groceries, let alone an entire month. And we also know that many New Yorkers who are receiving less than $100 per month are often older adults, often participating in SSI and earning right around the federal poverty line of $16,000 annually. So we know that these are groups that are especially vulnerable and don't deserve to have food as something that they're worried about, in addition to many other things. So with this in mind, we want to raise the minimum benefit for SNAP to $100 per month. We know that this would help 107,000 New Yorkers who currently receive less than that. And so part of the fiscal year 2026 state budget must allocate $70 million to increase that SNAP minimum benefit to $100 per month. At the same time, we also want to talk about eligibility challenges with SNAP. So currently, over 700,000 income-eligible New Yorkers are excluded from SNAP due solely to their immigration status. These groups may be outright ineligible, and that might include international students. It might include DACA recipients, undocumented individuals, asylum seekers. It also means that there are those who are technically eligible, but face 5-year waiting periods before they're able to access their benefits. Think, for example, green card holders and other groups as well. We know, again, that this is absolutely unacceptable. Everyone deserves the right to food, regardless of their background or their citizenship status or where they come from. We also know that in addition to providing to our society and our culture, these groups, these New Yorkers, contribute to our state's economy, with undocumented individuals alone contributing $3 billion in state and local taxes. So not only is it their right to have food, but also by contributing, they deserve access to have food assistance through SNAP. So we are asking for the state to ensure that we are promoting SNAP for All, an initiative that would allow all income-eligible New Yorkers to receive vital food assistance benefits regardless of their immigration status.
Good morning. My name is Joe Ferris. I'm the Government Relations Manager at Hunger Solutions New York. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. To talk about healthy school meals for all, it's important to remember that earlier this year, the USDA reported that households with children in New York that are struggling to provide food jumped a full percentage point year on year to 12%. And at the same time, after pandemic-era emergency waivers that provided all students with school meals expired, 8 states created their own program. Here in New York, while there have been significant and historic investments in the past 2 budgets, we still have 280,000 children who are at schools that have been left behind. And many of them live on Long Island and the Hudson Valley, which, as many of us know, are areas where the cost of living has soared. And at the same time, residents for an extended period have experienced economic inequality, which brings us to Healthy School Meals for All. A truly universal program is a game changer. It alleviates hunger. It'll save families approximately $165 per month per child. It improves academic performance. It supports children's mental and physical health, and it eliminates stigma and meal debt. What we are asking for, we are a coalition of more than 200 organizations, is for the fiscal year 26 enacted budget to ensure that no child goes hungry at school by providing a fully universal program in New York.
We also recognize that all the initiatives thus far are important to getting food assistance directly to the people who need it. And at the same time, we know that demand has increased at our food banks, pantries, and other community-based organizations working directly on the front lines of hunger. We know that demand has increased 70% compared to pre-pandemic levels. So we need to make sure that we have adequate backstops to make sure that food gets directly to community members who need it. One program that is critical and does this is HIPNAP, which is the Hunger Prevention and Nutrition Assistance Program. Again, this is a program that provides funds for food procurement and distribution to food banks, pantries, and other CBOs working directly on the front lines of hunger. This is also a really critical program because it provides funding for admin and capacity building costs. We know this is important because, yes, while it's important to get food directly to communities, we know that we need to have adequate storage and freezer capacity for those foods. And we also need adequate staffing to make sure the food gets moved, right? And so, again, this is a really crucial program that we need to make sure gets continuously funded. And we're asking for the state budget to increase this funding for HIPNAP to $75 million. And another crucial program that we want to talk about is Nourish New York. This is a program similar to HIPNAP that provides funds for food procurement and distribution to organizations, again, working on the front lines of hunger. And it's a really cool program because it does this by supporting local economies, including 4,000 New York-based growers, farmers, and producers. So as Cooper said before, a win-win-win. It's helping to get food into the communities. It's doing that by supporting local economies. And the third win is it's also helping to make sure that this food is nutritious and culturally relevant, which are two really important things to make sure that you're getting in the quality of your food. So Nourish New York, another crucial program, and we want that to also be funded at $75 million. So at this time, this concludes the portion of our programming where we're talking about our state priorities. And next up, we're really excited to introduce speakers who have personal experiences with many of the issues that we've discussed so far today. So first up, I would like to introduce Whitley Hasty. Whitley Hasty is the Benefits Navigation Manager with FoodLink, which is upstate New York's regional food bank. In her role at the food bank, Whitley works to increase access to nutritional supplemental programs like SNAP and WIC that we've already talked about. She also serves on FoodLink's Advocacy Committee, the Board of Directors for Hunger Free America, and on both the state and federal advocacy committees at Feeding New York State. Thank you so much, Whitley.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank everyone who's hopped on this call today to listen to some important information. My name is Whitley Hasty. Thank you for the introduction. I'm one of the 88 SNAP navigators in New York State. I've been with FoodLink in different roles for the past 3 years, and I want to share with you a glimpse of the reality that some New Yorkers are facing today that I witness in my work. In this role as a benefits navigation manager, I work to connect families and individuals to receive help to buy food through both the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program and the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, which is SNAP and WIC. And these are both life-saving programs, and I mean that. They're for hardworking Americans, and they have been for decades. It's not that long ago that these programs, both of them actually allowed me and my family to keep the lights on and get to work. And I'm grateful to be in this position now to be able to use my lived experience to assist those that are eligible in receiving these benefits. So on a daily basis, it doesn't really feel like more than the estimated it doesn't really feel like only 1 out of 8 upstate New Yorkers are having a difficult time affording food. And that's a figure from Feeding America's latest Map the Meal Gap study, where it's reported that at least in FoodLink's 10 county service area, more than 150,000 individuals are food insecure. And many of us on this call today are familiar with high poverty rates being too often a marker for rates of hunger in this country. But I'd like to point out that many of my neighbors and members of my community that need help are not always homeless or unemployed. They simply just can't afford enough food to get by. And there are many that I try to help that are both hungry and not income eligible for SNAP because they make too much money. And those are really difficult calls and conversations that I have. There's a lot of obvious changes within the past 5 years leading up to where we're at. And I'd like everyone here to consider that more people visited the emergency food system in our region, the 9 counties surrounding Monroe, and this is just a snapshot of the state, but more people visited the emergency food system in 9 months out of 2024 than the entire year of 2023. It's a 47% increase in pantry and meal program utilization. And I can't tell you the number of times each week that I'm on the other end of the phone with a mother who's crying that she never had to do this before. And she's talking about asking for where a food pantry is because she's always been able to afford enough food without running out. And she doesn't want anyone to know. And this is something else I need those with a platform to champion some of these initiatives talking about today and understand that negative rhetoric around participation in programs like SNAP and WIC has really got to end. And I know that we can do it. So by supporting these programs and raising up lived experience that calls out where true inequity actually lies, will be beneficial to all of us. The truth is that Americans are just so hardwired to, work ourselves to death, that there's this inherent shame attached to still at the end of a 40-hour work week with sports practices, trying to fix your car, doctor's appointments, and not having enough food in the house is somehow an indicator of failure. And it feels embarrassing and impossible. And those are the folks that I work with every single day. When we make sacrifices like choosing between food and rent, we pay our rent. With less to spend on groceries, we're choosing highly processed, less expensive foods with little to no nutritional value, adding to the stigmatization that healthy is expensive and unattainable. An unpopular truth is that hunger is an epidemic in America right now. Some states might not be able to admit it, but I know we all know that it is. It's been rising exponentially. We're capable of showing the rest of this country what it looks like to uplift and empower our citizens by backing these powerful programs. And I just want to highlight some of the ones we've already covered in terms of what it looks like for my experience. HIPNAP funding lets food banks like ours and food pantries to purchase food and pay for utilities and storage to keep the refrigeration going and stuff so that we can be real stewards of what we procure. The funding from Nourish New York helps us purchase directly from local producers, and this creates long-lasting and positive public health effects and economic development. The $100 SNAP minimum would allow every eligible recipient of the program to be able to keep up with the average meal cost of $4. I believe it's $4.33. Hopefully that's correct. I recently spoke to a young woman who told me she couldn't afford to eat where she works. She gets $75 a month in SNAP. That's $2.50 a day for compared to the average meal cost in New York. And she works hard and still struggling to afford food on a regular basis. There's a lot of folks in the state, primarily able-bodied adults without dependents, like our seniors, that receive current SNAP minimum of $23. That's 26 cents per meal. Those individuals are sometimes rationing their prescriptions so that they can eat. And that is a fact. FoodLink participates in the SNAP matching Double Up Food Bucks program, which I love, through our mobile market, our mobile curbside market, which some of you are familiar with. We visit 61 sites a week, allowing shoppers to use all the forms of payment. I'm so sorry. My computer was going to die. So FoodLink participates in Double Up Food Bucks through our mobile curbside market. And we allow shoppers to use all form of payments. A fleet of refrigerated vans and trucks meets Rochesterians where they're at in parts of the city where grocery retail has divested in the area. And Double Up Food Buck participation rapidly increases every day as New Yorkers are really looking for every opportunity to stretch their food dollars. We do commend Governor Hope for signing on to summer EBT this year. It's estimated that around 2 million school-age children are eligible to receive the one-time payments aimed to replace the school meals they do not get during summer break. And our team at FoodLink here also helped guide several families through that process of determining how to receive summer EBT funds, because it's very real that some children only eat when they're in school. So everyone who applied automatically qualified will have eligibility for those on $120 one-time payments for the next 3 years, and that's exciting. I just want to end on, food insecurity is not an isolated issue, but it has grown rapidly. It's affecting more families, communities, and individuals recently than since the Great Recession, and there's no real end in sight. And no matter how many meals and pounds of food that food banks or food pantries provide, it's never a match for the relief provided by federal nutrition programs. And that's why lawmakers, we call on you today to consider the tried and true effectiveness of these programs when we need it the most. WIC serves 50% of the nation's infants. And when we do our SNAP outreach, we also connect them to this vital program, WIC, because we know that SNAP is an adjunct qualifier for the WIC program, and less than half of those eligible for the WIC program participate in it. That's why the work that I do to help others navigate these programs is crucial, and this work just really needs your support. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Whitley. Next up, we have Megan Bates. Megan Bates serves as the Vice President of the New York School Nutrition Association. She has 13 years of school nutrition experience, ranging from cook manager up to operational manager of shared food services, overseeing the operations of more than 35 school district lunch programs. Megan recently received the Ann B. Jennings Award in recognition of her advocacy efforts on behalf of the children of New York State. Thank you so much, Megan. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I feel really lucky to be advocating for students across New York State on something that's really important to me, which is school meals. I've been in this industry a long time, and I've seen how meals, how important they are for our students. Imagine starting your day without knowing whether you're going to have enough to eat. For many of our students in New York, that's not hypothetical for them, and that's a reality. And I'm also a mom too, so I've seen firsthand how important these programs are. I can tell you that it's a relief to me as a mom to be able to send my kids to school without having to worry about packing a lunch or getting a negative balance letter in the mail saying that I owe money for meals that they may have gotten at school. It's also a relief to know that when they're going to get these meals at school, that they're highly nutritious meals, often with local products from New York State. So it's really important that we push forward and try to get help funding for healthy meals for all for students across New York State to ensure that no child is ever feel like they can't go into the lunchroom to get a meal. Or maybe, they don't want mom and dad to get a letter home saying that they owe lunch money. So we really need to ensure healthy funding for healthy meals for all. In New York, in children specifically, 1 in 5 children live in food insecure households. These students come to school and they're distracted, they're anxious, they're worried, am I going to get something to eat? Or sometimes having to choose between grabbing a breakfast and getting to class, And so if we can ensure funding for these programs, we can also ensure access to these programs as well, and making sure that the kids don't feel like they have to choose everywhere. Choose whether they're going to grab breakfast or get to class as well. And a lot of people are arguing that we already have programs in place like National School Lunch and National School Breakfast program. And while the programs are very helpful and we do rely on them in our school meal programs, they're certainly not enough. The funding has not been enough for us. At the end of the day, when you kind of break it down and look at it, we have about $1.25 to work with to get a meal on a plate for a student. So it's so important that we ensure funding for these programs, and we ensure access to all of these programs for kids as well. By ensuring that these programs are running and that we can provide meals for all students across New York State, we're also investing in our local economy. Most of our school lunch programs in the area have worked to get local products in their schools, so that money that we're getting goes right back into the economy, which is really important. Again, like I spoke before, these meals are often more nutritious than we're seeing come in meals that kids are bringing in from school, which is why it's really important that we're not singling out districts that maybe don't have high free or reduced percentages. I just came from a district that had a free and reduced percentage that was just below the CEP threshold. There's still need there. Even the kids that may have money to bring a meal in, it's often not the most nutritious meal, especially those families that are right on the border, and they may be going to places such as a Dollar General and places like that to secure their meals for their students. And we can do better. We can ensure that these kids have access to programs and meals for all. Another kind of problem we're seeing with the current programs in place, as well as schools that are not CEP across the board are still relying on income applications, which are quite outdated. They really just look at the gross salary and they don't take into account rent, maybe emergency medical situations. Maybe mom's car died last month and she's got to go buy a new car, and they really don't take into account those situations. They also, if you are $1 over that threshold, you are denied, and there's no help. So, in 2024, there really isn't an excuse to not be providing kids meals at school. We don't charge for textbooks. We don't charge for the bus. We certainly don't charge for the nurse. So to keep, the kids out of the nurses, let's ensure that they all have access to healthy meals for all. So again, we want to thank you this season, this legislative season coming up, and hopefully you can join with us and really push forward healthy meals for all students in New York State.
Thank you so much, Megan. Next up, we have Robin King. Robin King has worked in higher education for over 4 decades, most of which have been at SUNY Schenectady. She has overseen operations of the campus food pantry since 2017. Robin is a sought-after college food pantry consultant and does site visits at campuses in New York and across the country. She speaks about food justice and advocacy at local press events, has been invited to present on food pantry best practices at national conferences, and is putting final edits on an ebook about how to propose, build, sustain, and scale a college food pantry. Thank you so much, Robin, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to be here. Does anyone remember seeing photos of the bread lines during the Great Depression? Those were some of the first opportunities for the media to convey to the world how many people were hungry and the desperate circumstances they were in. But despite good intentions and a desire to help, relief efforts fell short, and many deserving Americans went hungry every night. And here we are 95 years later addressing the same issue. Those of us who work in food justice and feeding people do so from a place of love and compassion for our neighbors. Many of us, myself included, have lived experience with poverty and hunger. I got involved with food relief because I've walked that path. I remember as a young single mother being in a constant state of worry and fear because I could never be sure how or whether I'd be able to feed my family and myself every single day. I also remember what a blessing it is to have a hand reach out to help. As my colleague Megan just explained, we know the impact of hunger on children and adolescents and how school feeding programs improve students' health and performance in school. This need doesn't end at high school graduation, however. Hunger is rampant on college campuses across the United States, including my own. I've worked at SUNY Schenectady for the past 3 decades and have overseen our food pantry operations for the past 7. Many of our students do their best to get an education while juggling jobs, family responsibilities, and a challenging economy that prevents their hard-earned wages from covering their living expenses. Now, while our food pantry provides temporary relief to make that gap a tiny bit smaller, we're still struggling to serve the nearly 25% increase in the number of students using the food pantry just this semester alone. In fact, since COVID, we've managed a 168% increase in the number of people that have been fed by our food pantry. The Nourish New York program has been extremely helpful to our food pantry when ordering from the regional food bank. We've received eggs, yogurt, milk, cheese, and meat at no cost, and that really helps to stretch our budget. This program helps us to provide healthy and culturally relevant options to our food pantry visitors. The food relief we provide has produced positive intended outcomes for many of our students. 85% of food pantry visitors register for the next semester or graduate, compared to 69% of the entire student population. A graduating student once told me, quote, "Because I could visit the food pantry 3 times every month, I didn't have to get a 3rd part-time job," end quote. Another way we support our students is to provide space for the Schenectady County SNAP Navigator to hold office hours on campus 1 day a month to assist with applications and denial appeals. One student recently conveyed how angry and heartbroken they were that after all the hoops they had to jump through to apply for SNAP, their monthly benefit is only $23. $23? What can you buy at the grocery store with that and still feed yourself for a month? Hunger is preventable and solvable. Emergency food providers struggle to sustain the increasing need without increases in financial support. New York State needs to step up, acknowledge that hunger is a basic human right that's not being adequately met for over 2 million New Yorkers, and fully fund all of the food justice initiatives being discussed today. What a difference that would make. Imagine a forum like this 95 years from now, where speakers and elected officials make the announcement that they're closing all food pantries and food relief agencies because they made the necessary systemic changes that make hunger obsolete. If only. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Robin, Megan, Whitley, and our co-presenters for humanizing the issues and highlighting the vital importance of each of these state-level initiatives. Next up, we'll move into our panel of elected officials. Each of our guests here today have played a leadership role on the issues of hunger and poverty in the New York State Legislature. So in alphabetical order, I'm excited to announce our fantastic panel here today. So first up, we'd like to introduce Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, who represents New York State's 34th Assembly District in Queens. Welcome, Assemblymember.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Next, we'd like to introduce Senator Michelle Hinchy, representing New York's 41st Senate District in the Hudson Valley. Welcome, Senator.
Hello.
Glad to have you with us. Next up, representing the 19th Senate District in Brooklyn, we're excited to welcome Senator Roxanne Prasad to the panel. Welcome, Senator.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. And closing out our panel, we have Assemblywoman Mikhail Salaj, who represents the 22nd Assembly District on Long Island. Assemblywoman, welcome to the panel. Quick note for our attendees. So Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas has to jump off at 11 a.m. So we're going to start with an opening question for all our panelists and then begin with 2 back-to-back questions specifically for the Assemblymember. All right, so we'll get this started. So Assemblymember Gonzalez Rojas, would you mind introducing yourself and sharing why anti-hunger initiatives are a priority for you and your district?
Thank you, Ryan. Hi, everyone. I'm Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. I use she, her, pronouns. I proudly represent Western Queens, the neighborhoods of Jackson Heights, East Elmhurst, Corona, Woodside, and Astoria. Many of you may know those neighborhoods because we were essentially the epicenter of the epicenter during the height of coronavirus. And this speaks to the reason why I care so deeply about food insecurity issues. During the height of the pandemic, we saw, places shut down. We have a vibrant restaurant industry. Many of those restaurants shut down, and we saw the lines for the food pantries increase and increase and increase. In fact, we saw many of our neighbors come together to advocate and pull resources together to create new food pantries, many which are celebrating their 4-year anniversary this year. So, we've really seen it. I was out there handing out food, listening to our neighbors, and these are literally our neighbors. These are the people we know and love and care about in our communities, and to see the way in which food insecurity hit them, whether they were older adults or families with children, was really heartbreaking. So as a assembly member, I came in 2021. I made it my mission to make sure that we can do everything that we can in New York State to address food insecurity for all our neighbors across New York.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Senator Hinchy, what about you? Could you introduce yourself and why anti-hunger initiatives are a priority for you and your district?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. First and foremost, thank you to all of the organizers and everyone tuning in and for your care about this topic. It is so critical and, quite frankly, something that has been undervalued, underappreciated, and underdiscussed for a very long time. I represent the 41st District in the Hudson Valley. It spans about 2,500 square miles and 56 towns, so I won't name them all, but it includes all of Greene County, all of Columbia County, about half of Ulster County, and half of Dutchess County, Northern Dutchess. And so we represent both a rural area with lots of farmers, but also a lot of food deserts. And that's something that people don't often think about, right? If you're next to the communities that are growing food, you too should have access to it. And yet often those pipelines are and those supply chains are not built. I have the privilege of chairing the Agriculture Committee. And one thing that also a lot of folks don't always think about is New York is an ag state. It's a huge part of our economy, and we are the future of our food supply. I can talk a little bit more about that later, or the future of our food supply and where we're growing food in our country. And so making sure that we have a strong food supply, that we're supporting our farmers and locally grown healthy food, and in turn getting that food to people across our state is just smart policy. It's important for people to be able to eat healthy food. It lowers healthcare costs. It's a right that everybody has. And it will also make our tax dollars circular. If we're spending our dollars back into our farming economies, that keeps our dollars in New York, which can go a lot farther. And so one thing too is Assembly member brought up the pandemic. I'd say one silver lining of that absolutely terrible time is that it really woke a lot of people up into where our food comes from, and what kind of food we are eating and what kind of food we should be eating. And so, it wasn't until day 55 of the pandemic that we started to have a robust conversation, recognizing that farmers were dumping milk and that food was quite literally dying on the vine, while we had people at food pantries who were seeking out meals with lines down the blocks. Often for miles, including in districts like mine. And so strengthening these connections for people is critical. And I'm really proud to be doing this work with our other champions on this call. And thank you everyone for tuning in and for your work in this space, because we do have a lot more to do. And to me, there's really nothing more important than making sure that everyone has the opportunity to eat healthy, locally sourced food from New York.
Thank you, Senator Hinchey. Moving over to you, Senator Prasad, you're up. Could you introduce yourself and share why anti-hunger initiatives are a priority for you and your district?
So you said I am Senator Roxanne Prasad. I represent the 19th Senate District, a district that covers parts. I'm not going to go like Senator Hinchey. She has a vast area, but my district covers parts of Brooklyn and parts of Queens. I also chair the Social Services Committee, and our fight is a daily fight to ensure that no one across New York State goes hungry. SNAP benefits programs comes out of the Social Services Committee. I see on a daily basis our students who are going to school, and the only meals a lot of them are receiving are the meals that they're having in schools. And it's our seniors. They're going to the senior centers because they can receive a hot meal at the senior center. And so it became necessary for me to continue this fight. As Assembly Member Gonzalez-Rojas said, the pandemic really exposed the plight we have in our district when it comes to food insecurity. We started many pantries across the district to ensure that people were receiving food, starting the delivery of food to homes, to those homebound, but it was never enough. It is never enough. What is it that we need to do to ensure no one goes hungry across the state of New York? It's hunger and New York should not be in the same sentence. That's the way I see it. Hunger in New York. People come to New York thinking we're the greatest state, we're the best in the world, but we have people who are going on a daily basis hungry. We must not let that happen. I am concerned with the federal administration looking to cut SNAP benefits, and we will talk about that, and we will continue to fight across the New York State legislature to ensure that we eliminate the word hunger from the vocabulary of New Yorkers. So thanks again for having me here.
And thank you, Senator. Closing out our opening question, Assemblywoman Szilagyi, could you introduce yourself and share why anti-hunger initiatives are a priority for you and your district?
Well, greetings, everyone. In a state as resourceful and as prosperous as New York, it's unacceptable and even unconscionable that millions of our neighbors, including seniors and children, go to bed hungry every night. And food insecurity to me is not just a policy failure, it's a moral failure. And so I am Mikael Salage. I am a legislator from Long Island. Yes, you see the accent. And I represent a small portion of Nassau County. And for me, everyone has an interpretation that, Long Island is a place of extreme wealth. We all have ponies. I don't have a pony. No, and I have a little dog, but not a pony. Or that, hunger doesn't exist. But on Long Island, there's a hidden hunger, and I see it every day. And I work with great organizations like Long Island Cares and Long Island Harvest to eradicate that hunger. And it's really our responsibility as a community for us to collaborate and work together to do that. And so, I was once the chair of the Farm Food, subcommittee in the Assembly. Now I'm chair of the Black, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Asian Caucus. And I've always advocated to ensure that we provide as much resources as possible to the state nutrition programs to ensure that we are tackling food insecurity. And, every day, we do that fight. And I'm so grateful to this coalition and also to all of my colleagues here, these amazing, smart, beautiful women that, fight for the people in our district, because we all know the issues and concerns, and we have the power and responsibility to tackle those issues. But it requires great collaboration and political will to do so. And so we have a lot of bills that we're supporting. There's a lot of funding allocations that we're advocating for. And we hope to do that. Challenging times are ahead of us, but, we can do it together. We can ensure that everyone has not just food, but nutritious food in front of them, and that no one in our state goes hungry. So I look forward to the conversation, and let's get it done.
Thank you, Assemblywoman, and thank you all of our panelists. So we're really excited to have everyone here today sharing their expertise. So we'll start with Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. So earlier this year, you and Senator Rachel May went shopping at an Albany grocery store, and you filled 2 shopping carts. One had $23 worth of groceries, which represents the current SNAP minimum benefit. The other had a shopping cart of $100, which is your legislative push. How would you compare the 2 shopping carts?
Oh my gosh, Ryan, I think you were with us. It was really eye-opening to see what $23 really got you. I remember distinctly, we got eggs, we got cereal, and we got blueberries. That was it for $23. That barely got us through breakfast for the month. And, once we started adding items in the cart that got us to $100, we started seeing the ways in which we can actually have lunch and dinner. And, $100 isn't even that much money. But to get us from $23, that can only get us 3 or 4 items for breakfast, to $100 was such a relief. And I remember feeling the strain as we were looking at price tags and, comparing items and looking for sales, what a burden it was to think we have to stay within that $23 mark. And I actually remember that breakfast shopping cart was actually slightly over. I feel like it was like $23.16 or something. So we even went over that $23 minimum. So it shows and underscores the importance of raising the minimum standard for the SNAP program. New Jersey did it. They got up to $95. We fought really hard in our last budget session. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get it done, but we're really committed to continue to advocate for it this year. We're seeing prices continuing to go up. We're seeing inflation continuing to rise, and we have to make sure that our SNAP program keeps pace with that, so that, again, as we're hearing today, that no family in New York goes hungry. And raising that minimum standard for the SNAP program is a critical way to get us there. It is one of the most successful programs to alleviate hunger, but we have to make sure it's funded at the realities that we live in today.
Thank you, Assemblymember. And going back to you on another issue that you've been leading over the last several years. So, as you know, there are many reasons, to make school meals free for all students. Obviously, families save money, kids' academic performance improves, students' mental and physical health improve, stigma and meal debt are completely eliminated. One of the pushbacks that we hear, which of course isn't accurate, is that the only kids who remain without access to free school meals are, quote, rich kids, and we shouldn't be covering the cost of their school meals. Assemblymember, how would you respond to that concern?
I think about wealthy neighborhoods across the state, and in every wealthy neighborhood, we have kids who fall through the cracks. And to apply for the free school meal program, a family of 4 earning $58,000 is over income in New York State. So they're ineligible for the free school meal program if you have to apply through the mean tested program. In Long Island alone, where Assemblywoman Szilagyi represents, there's 130,000 kids that are without free school meals. And it is said by, all the economists that to live and just get the basic necessities and pay for the basic necessities, a family of 4 needs to earn at least $91,000. So the gap between 58,000, 91,000 and other areas across the state that might even have higher rates of cost of living is very real. And we should not be rationing food. Every child deserves a healthy meal, a healthy free breakfast, a healthy free lunch at school. We cannot teach a hungry child, and that's it. And we have to make sure the program is fully universal to make sure every single child has a nutritious breakfast and a nutritious lunch. And as we've been advocating for this, myself, Senator Hinchey carries the bill in the state Senate. Both our Assemblywoman Szilagyi and Senator Prasad have been at the forefront of fighting for this alongside us. It's a bipartisan effort, right? It is something that is broadly supported across the state. It's something that we have to get done. Over the last 2 cycles, we got up to 86% of school children. So 86% of school children across the state have access to free, healthy breakfast and lunch. Let's just get over the finish line. Let's get to 100% so that no child falls through the crack and every child has an opportunity to succeed in New York State.
Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, thank you for joining us here today and for your leadership on tackling hunger in New York State. We look forward to working together in the year ahead.
Thank you so much.
Senator Hinchey, you serve as chair of the Senate Agriculture Committee, and you've been a champion of several of the anti-hunger priorities and initiatives that we're discussing here today. Of course, as the Assembly member just alluded to, healthy school meals for all in particular. What connections do you see between programs like Nourish New York and Healthy School Meals for All, and how do they relate to your goals for strengthening New York's food system?
Thank you. I think these are 2 programs that are critical to solving hunger. One thing I'd like to add to Assemblymember Gonzalez Rojas's comments on healthy school meals, and obviously she is spot on every community, regardless of wealth, has students that fall through the cracks, and the level set that we have is not enough in today's economy, in today's world. The other aspect, too, is that by providing universal school meals, you remove the stigma for children and families who are on these programs. You remove the confusion within students who one student is getting something that the other one isn't. And even though it's because one student may be more stable in their home financial economic life, it's still something that they're not getting, and they don't understand the broader constructs of the world in which we live. And so it becomes this challenged and fraught space. In some schools for breakfast, right, students go in early, they leave the bus early to get their breakfast before other students come in. The situation that we have set up kind of it's naturally a space where students are going to be confused with one another and not understand. And by removing the stigma, by removing that you get something that I don't get, what is it that you have? Oh, why is it that you get that? Will allow students to just focus on learning, building those social and emotional connections with their peers, regardless of economic status. And that makes our future generations and our school systems that much stronger. And so it's a really important program, both from putting more money in families' pockets, from ensuring that all students are not hungry and they can actually learn and achieve their full potential, but that we can also set up a school system that is based on relationship building as opposed to having a government create the stigma setting dynamic. And really proud to be fighting for that program with everybody on this call collectively, and so many more. The Nourish New York program is an incredible program that actually came out of the pandemic, kind of set from what I outlined in the beginning. It started with surplus goods from farmers being bought by the state and then given to food banks and food pantries. And we've been able to expand that program to not just surplus goods, but to be a new market for our farmers. And a bill right now that we're actually waiting for the governor to sign would be a fix to the Nourish New York program to allow milk to be part of that program so that we can get healthy beverages too into our food banks and food pantries. This is a no-brainer. All of these programs work together to help people. And for us, if we are expanding programs to actually get people food so that they can survive in our communities and in our state, it should be locally sourced healthy food from New York farmers. And so having these programs that build those connections is critical. One of the things that we are focusing on and building off of the Healthy School Meals program is once we can get all of our students fed, we should ensure that that is good, healthy food. And so changing the farm to school program to ensure that school districts can actually get reimbursed for purchasing locally sourced healthy food, that we can actually support our ag communities and our farmers across our state and getting their food into our schools and our institutions is really important. One of the things that a lot of people also, unless you're in an ag community and a farming community, that may not be aware of, is so much of the farm assistance that we get from the federal government does not go to New York farms. And that's because New York farms are small, family-owned farms. Much of the assistance in the Farm Bill, and the Farm Bill at the national level, is a lot of food security programs like SNAP, and it's also some programs to support farmers. A lot of them go to larger, more corporate, mass-scale farms. But the future of our ag society and the future of the food that we should be creating are small farms which are using good environmental practices. All the money is coming back into the community. They're using good animal welfare practices, labor practices. That's all happening here in our state. And so we have to be supporting these farms when in actuality, many of them are closing because the cost of growing food is not keeping up also with the cost of food. Even though we're seeing the rise of food costs in our grocery stores and across our communities, that's because we have big corporations who are driving up those costs, and they're not actually going back to the farmers, especially those in New York themselves. There's a story that we have from my previous district in the 41st, a farm in Albany County, that I think encapsulates this perfectly. There was a farm that was growing strawberries, and they were offered by a big grocery chain to buy their strawberries, but the cost that they were offering to pay didn't even cover the cost for New York, for that farm to pick the strawberries alone. And that grocery chain was able to say, take it or leave it. If you're not taking this price, we're going to go to Florida and we're going to get that price. Our farm couldn't accept that, and they no longer grow strawberries because it was not cost effective for them to grow the product if they had no market. And that bigger grocery chain was able to get cheaper prices in a place like Florida that doesn't have as good of labor practices or animal welfare or environmental practices. And again, money coming back into our state. And so we have to do a better job of finding these markets in our own communities, making sure that as we provide everyone from students to seniors access to healthy food, that it's coming from our state's farmers. And so we actually have another bill right now that is on the governor's desk, which is the Good Food Purchasing Program, which would change the bidding structure. Right now, if any municipality goes out to bid for a food contract, it has to be the lowest responsible bidder. But we know that that's not going to be often, maybe New York businesses or these New York farmers. And so our bill says that you can pay 10% more if you're supporting local economies, and one of the values-based criteria that we've lined out, a few of which I've already mentioned, labor practices, animal welfare, environmental policies, et cetera. And that would be a game changer for our communities and therefore our institutions and our agencies to be able to ensure that they're helping people while also putting some of that money back into the pockets of our local farmers, which then go back into all of the services that we have in New York State and in their community specifically. So these programs are inextricably linked. And if we can support the growers that are actually growing the food, we can make sure that that food gets to people who need it across our communities in New York. And that to me is a really exciting proposition.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Prasad, moving over to you. So often when it comes to the New York State budget, big ticket items take up a lot of oxygen in the room. So within the context of a $237 billion budget, there are a lot of relatively modest investments that fund critical services that have outsized impacts. So each year, for example, you champion the $2 million legislative add-on for the Nutrition Outreach and Education Program, or NOEP, to expand access to SNAP navigators around the state. Why is this program a continued priority for you, Senator?
You know, first I'll touch on the large budget. Social services in the context of the budget is always looked at as something that we are giving away. We're giving people things, and we're not seeing an ROI, which is not so. And so the first thing they look to when they're looking at the budget, they're like, oh, we're going to cut social services. And every year we have to fight against that. You know, it's a funny thing. I said that last week to some of my colleagues. We're not touching social services. And NOEP is a crucial program. It's bringing families together and saying, you are eligible for some SNAP benefits so that food can be placed on your table. Again, as I said earlier, we should not be telling New Yorkers that they cannot eat. It's not something that should happen in New York State. You know, SNAP benefits are important. We need to increase the amount that every family is eligible for. I'll continue fighting for $2 million, yes. You know, the advocates, we talk about it, we say $2 million, but it should have more money invested in NOEP. That's the bottom line. We should continue to invest. Children are hungry. Children are going to school and relying on school meals. Our school meals should not be the only meal a child receives on a daily basis. Senator Hinchey spoke about milk being thrown out. We want to ensure that whole milk is back in school also. So it's not just a talk about, you know, they were throwing away milk. Students, we are throwing away milk in schools also because the kids are not wanting to drink the 2% milk, right? And so the farmers tell us, they say, does anybody understand that 2% milk and whole milk, there's not much difference in the milk, right? So we continue to fund NOEP. We continue to ensure that we are giving kids healthy choices in school. I saw someone ask a question, well, you know, you guys are giving nuggets in schools and pepperoni pizza. Is that considered a healthy meal? No. We want to ensure that they have a healthy, nutritious, balanced diet with the funding that we should be providing for them to eat on a daily basis. You know, we have to do better. We really have to do better. We have these conversations about the needs, the nutritional needs, and ensuring no family goes hungry. But we have not really, we fight for it, but we have not really done what we really should. We are so dependent on funding from the federal government for these programs. And the federal government looks at states such as New York and say, you know, you should be doing this on your own. You don't need to get money from us. We do need to have money from the federal government. And I'm saying, I'm concerned that the federal government now will really push back and scale back on the funding for SNAP, which will not be a great thing for the people across the state of New York. We will continue to fight for funding for NOEP and all other nutritional programs so that not just our students in school are receiving a nutritious meal, but our seniors. Too many seniors are going hungry. We should not allow that to happen. And that is my commitment as the chair of social services, to continue to fight to ensure that we receive the funding across the state so that everyone can eat. And no, Senator Hinchey, you've heard me say this. I will continue to push back on the efforts to cut funding from the social services budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Prasad. Assemblywoman Szilagyi, I want to put this question to you. So the administration set to take office next year has indicated that they plan to crack down on some of our most vulnerable New Yorkers, particularly immigrant families. What opportunities exist for our state to not only push back against these efforts to harm New York families, but also to expand access to vital public benefits such as food assistance? And how can we open up here in New York State a larger conversation about immigrant justice and the existing exclusions under federal law?
I always tell people, we survived 4 years of this administration, and we will survive another 4 years of this administration. But we have to do it united, and we have to be vocal against any injustice. And so when we talk about New York is the land of immigrants. People come here from all across the world to be able to give back, and they become contributing members of our community. And so we've had a long legacy of advancing policies that have uplifted and helped most vulnerable New Yorkers. So I would say we need to continue reinforcing our state safety net. And what does that mean? Making sure that state-funded assistance programs like SNAPs is increased. Also making sure that we reach down to those community pantries and support those food pantries in their time of need, and also meal delivery programs, which are meeting record demand. In addition, we talked about free school meals, universal school meals, and that's something that we're advocating for. And, we spoke about it many times, definitely trying to expand it so that every student across New York State has access to the program. And we also need to invest in food sovereignty. Senator Hinchey, described it very well, that New York State is an agriculture state. And being from Long Island, Suffolk County has a huge agriculture business. So we need to make sure that we're supporting urban agriculture, local food cooperatives, some farm-to-table programs, and also strengthen many of those programs in underserved communities. If we empower our local food systems, we as a state can be sovereign against any sort of federal attack on us, and know that, particularly the upcoming federal administration is going to attack New York. They did it in the past, and we're going to be prepared for that. We also need to be proactive in our legislation. It's nice that we're passing bills, but we, with the executive, have to be smart and strategic. I know many people are discussing many people discuss going in to legislature and passing bills to Trump-proof our state. We should make sure that we're heavily investing in legislation that promotes food access. And so whether we do it, sooner or later, we have to be thoughtful in the legislative process to ensure that we are looking at, expanding food programs and strengthening food programs in our state. Sorry, I can't talk today, so excuse me. I need more coffee. In addition, we need to really destigmatize food insecurity. It's still a kind of a conversation that people don't want to have. And so we need to make sure that we're launching awareness campaigns in multiple languages that are culturally competent so that we can expand the education and knowledge to communities that are underserved and immigrant communities. And I'm particularly worried because I'm of Haitian descent. And, we saw that the upcoming administration really attack Haitian Americans and Haitians during their political campaign. And it was said that the legal protection of TPS, which is a legal immigration program, is going to be repealed. And so we're going to have, close to, or over 1 million Haitian Americans across this country in in a legal status that is unknown, and many of them are worried and concerned that the programs that they are needing are not going to be there. So we need to educate that community and let them know that there is access to these programs in New York State because we care about our neighbors. And then lastly, we need to look at the root causes of food insecurity. We know that it's all connected. Low wages, housing instability, healthcare disparities, it's all connected. So we need to start tackling the different points of disparities that exist in our community, and that will elicit and end food insecurity. So, I'm all about promoting food injustice. It's really a point about equity. It's about strengthening our state, and it's about making sure that people know that in New York State we believe in meaningful change. And once we do that in New York, literally, we are like, a flame to the whole country. If we're able to push back and show our independence as a state, I know that there are other states that will follow, and we as a group can push back against this federal administration, because I do believe that we believe in federalism, that states are independent, and that we as a state can protect our residents, irrespective of their immigration status. We are here to protect our residents, and that if they really want to be proactive, that they need to collaborate with the states instead of pushing their political agenda. So, we're gonna push back, and we're gonna do it together.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Senator Hinchey, shifting gears a little bit, you've been a strong supporter of the nutrition incentive program, Double Up Food Bucks New York, over the past few years. So could you tell us why you think it's important to support this program in addition to other anti-hunger initiatives in the state?
Thank you. The Double Up Food Bucks program is an incredible one. What it does is it matches dollar for dollar the purchase of fruits and vegetables and produce, and making sure that it can actually be affordable to get healthy food from our farmers. When we look at the landscape of how we're growing our food and across the country, while New York is an ag state, we get a lot of our food because the farms are bigger, they're more corporatized. Again, they get the subsidies and support from our federal government from places like California, Florida, and the Midwest. Many of those places are becoming less and less farmable based on flooding, droughts, and fire, right? We're seeing that happening all over the country in real time right now. And what that does, unfortunately for those communities, but it sets up the Northeast, AKA New York, to be the breadbasket of the country once again. So we have to be supporting all of our local farm communities and our farmers and our food supply chains here, because to Assemblymember Szilagyi point, to be sovereign, we actually have to grow our own food. And so many of our farmers are under deep development pressure, whether that's development pressure from solar developments or warehouses or whatever it might be. They're not getting the amount of money, as we just talked about before, to be able to actually stay in business. And so a program like Double Up Food Bucks, which brings money right back directly to our farmers while getting people the ability to actually buy fruits and vegetables and to afford that on this program, is critical. We heard a lot in this past election about the cost of grocery prices and about a big promise of lowering grocery prices. And in the last week alone, we've seen the incoming administration walk that back, saying, quote, once prices are high, it's actually pretty hard to bring them back down. So, we'll see. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. And so we, everyone on this call and so many more, have to be able and willing and, encouraged to push back on that conversation. And they're going to do what they're going to do, but we have to call them out on the hypocrisy as much as we can so that it stays in the forefront, and also then shows that we in New York have to do everything we can to make those prices and to make that food accessible, because we don't expect it, we can't expect it to be coming from the federal government. In our state, on the Double Up Food Bucks program, over $300,000 have gone to benefit over 500 farmers just in 2023. That's incredible. And so there's a lot of great work that we are doing to build a sovereign food supply chain in New York. And when we talk about, I'll mention too, on the question, as Senator Prasad brought up, the question in the chat, or I'll say, about what healthy food is. Of course it's not. I mean, I love a pizza just like the next person, but of course that's not doesn't meet the full food groups, right? And you can't live a healthy life if you're just eating pizza or processed nuggets or whatever it might be. We have to be providing healthy food. And that's why a program like helping to update the Farm to School program, which is a great program, but it's not as utilized as it should be because it's not actually affordable for those schools to do it. Or things like increased cold storage, right? If you're going to be eating healthy food and fruits and vegetables, it goes bad. Right? That's why preservatives and those processed foods are the easiest ones in food bags, food pantries, or in our schools because they have a longer shelf life. We have to invest in things like cold storage and solidifying that food supply chain so that everyone in every corner of our state gets real access to healthy food. And so the Food Bucks, Double Up Food Bucks program is one that we will continue to push for. I think we should be putting more money into that program too, because it pays, the ripple effects are critical, are incredible. And the circular economy that it creates is one that we should be working to mirror in other aspects of our policy.
Thank you, Senator Hinchey. Senator Prasad, so as was mentioned earlier in the presentations, this past summer marked the inaugural year of a brand new federal nutrition program, Summer EBT. So families receive $100 per eligible child on an EBT benefit card, which helps provide access to healthy food during breaks from school. State level administrative funding for Summer EBT lives within the Human Services budget, and obviously we'll need to continue that investment moving forward to make sure that this program is sustainable. So as chair of the Senate's Social Services Committee and a stalwart advocate for expanding access to federal nutrition programs, Senator Prasad, could you talk a little bit about why Summer EBT is so important for New York families?
I think we welcomed when the Summer EBT program started. You know, it gave families the funding that they needed to have food when school was not in session. When school is in session, students are going to school, they're having meals. When it's not, it's a burden on the family because you have the kids home all day, and now you have to have lunch, breakfast, dinner, snacks, all of these things. And, you know, families who are already struggling can't afford it. And so, you know, it became a great program. What we found out also, though, is that the Summer EBT program, not every family was eligible for it. And so those are some of the, we still have to work these things out. OTDA, you know, they've been encouraging the families to make sure that they've registered, make sure they use the funding on the cards. We've had families who had the money on the cards, but they were afraid to spend the money because they thought it would be held against them. Right? It would be used against them, you know, the additional benefits that they're receiving. All school kids, I think people think that all school kids received the Summer EBT. They did not. If your school was part of the school nutrition program, then you got the Summer EBT. If your school was not part of the summer of the school nutrition program, that means you weren't getting your meals from the Department of Education. Your children weren't getting that money in the summer. If your children were going to, say, for example, a private school or a charter school, and they got their meals from the Department of Education in the summer during the school session, they got their meals there. Yes, those kids received meals. If they did not, again, then we had kids who were really going hungry during the summer. So our strategy is to ensure that every kid, regardless of the school that they're attending, should be receiving this funding. And so, you know, we are continuing conversations with OTDA. I am continuing to advocate for it. It's a very important program. We know the pandemic era is over as far as the federal government is concerned, but as a state, we still have to, we should continue funding this very important program, because no child, regardless of the school they're going to, regardless of the zip code they're living in, should be going hungry. People think, some zip codes, based on information that's in the public, it's a wealthy zip code, but there are pockets of poverty in every zip code. People, there are people who are afraid to say, oh my gosh, there's hunger in my community. No, I will always stand up and say, there's hunger in every community. Despite what some people may say, there is hunger in every community, and we have to continue to fight to ensure that programs such as the summer EBT program continues and that kids receive a nutritious meal every day, every hour of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Prasad. Assemblywoman Szilagyi, this past session, you sponsored landmark legislation that would amend the New York State Constitution to include the right to food and to be free from hunger for all New Yorkers. Can you talk a little bit about your plans for this upcoming session and any other efforts led by the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislative Caucus? Any plans the caucus may have to address food insecurity as well?
Yeah, definitely. For me, hunger is not about a lack of food. It's about a lack of justice. Hunger is a solvable problem. And that's why I introduced legislation to make food a right as a part of our Constitution. I've seen that we've passed these constitutional referendums. We passed one saying that, clean air and water is a basic right. We have a basic right of education in the Constitution. And why not have the basic right of ensuring that our neighbors have access to healthy, nutritious meals? A guarantee for everyone, because, if people are hungry, they're not productive, they can't work, we can't tackle their issues. And so this, constitutional amendment would hold government accountable to ensure that we recognize that food is a basic right. It would require government to work with local farms and other initiatives to ensure that we bolster our food supply chain. And it really would be, an opportunity for us to start tackling some of the root causes of poverty. And so my focus this session is to build bipartisan support in the legislature. I want to collaborate with people like you behind the screen to help us, spread this message. So I need, advocacy groups, stakeholders to help us, educate those about the significance of this constitutional amendment. And then I'm open to hosting public forums, hearings, any opportunity to gather input and build momentum for its passage. In addition, I'm looking to leverage the influence of the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislative Caucus. And for those who don't know, this is an organization within the legislature. It's bicameral, so it's comprised of great senators like Senator Prasad and others. It's bicameral, so Senate and Assembly. It's bipartisan. We have Democrats and Republicans. It's really a huge, diverse, coalition of legislators who advocate for marginalized communities. And we know that people of color are not a monolith, and we push legislation that ensures that New Yorkers are strengthened and helped. And so we talked about our policy initiatives just right here, and it's about uplifting marginal communities. So it's about making sure we make universal free school meals, ensuring that we support food banks. Urban agriculture has always been a big initiative of ours that we're really pushing, and also making sure that we provide direct relief for families. So it's many conversations that we're having, and we're open to more. I tell you that we are releasing our budget priorities in the next few days. And so you're going to have a great opportunity to read some of our priorities. But, tackling food insecurity has always been at the top of our policy agenda. And we're going to make sure that we're collaborating with any folks who believe that no New Yorker should go hungry. And we're excited to do that. And, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and discuss, and I look forward to taking action. This year's tagline for the caucus is agency and action. It's important that we have agency, that we know that we are individual people, that we have the power to change, but it's also important to take that action. It's not about just putting stuff on paper. It's about making sure that we implement policy in New York that uplifts everybody. That from Buffalo to Montauk, we are advocating for communities and advocating for the issues that are important to New Yorkers. So I'm a mother of three, and I know that food is very expensive. I have a 9-year-old that I don't know, he has a bottomless pit, and he's a boy too, so he eats a lot. And so I know when someone was talking about the prices of strawberries, or sorry, the senator was talking about strawberries, and the assemblyman was talking about blueberries. You know, I had to cut back because it's so expensive to buy fruit, and it's so expensive to buy nutritious food. And so it's exciting that we as legislators are going to start tackling these issues of affordability and ensure that all New Yorkers have access to food. And we're going to do that through a constitutional amendment. So I look forward to getting your support.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. And that tagline about action is a great segue to a final question. So we're going to wrap up with a rapid fire question. So in 30 seconds or less, what is a call to action you have for folks who joined us here today? And we'll start with Senator Hinchey.
So many actions, 30 seconds. Continue doing what you're doing. Thank you. The lobby days are important. These forums are important, but bringing it outside, obviously, of this coalition too, and bringing more people in is really important. We have to build our numbers on this topic. And also looking at legislation to support that supports our growers and our farmers, because that's where our food and our healthy food is coming from. You know, we passed a bill the last couple of sessions that is Senator Bailey's bill about the Office of Urban Agriculture, right? We have to be making sure that we can grow food across our state. And so looking into and hopefully incorporating some of the legislation that we have and advocating for some of the legislation that we have to support the growers too will make sure that we can, once we pass the constitutional amendment to everyone has a right to food or universal school meals for 100% of students, we can then ensure if we have growers in our state, we can get that food into those programs. And that's the way it's supposed to work. So keep doing what you're doing and help expand a little bit onto the ag and farmer front. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hinchey. Senator Prasad, what about you? What's the call to action you have for folks who joined us here today?
Continue advocating, continue pushing us, continue bringing the issue, excuse me, to us. I have been pushing for more hydroponic labs in our schools. Urban agriculture is the way we have to do for us to go. I want to make sure that everyone has access, and it starts with the students in schools. If the students in schools have access to produce their food, healthy food, and take it home, then it continues and uplifts the neighborhoods. We want to ensure that I'm asking all of you to help us to support the food pantries. You know, we should not have food pantries. People should not have to rely on food pantries for food, but we have it because it's needed. But we should not be doing that. So we need to ensure that we're all fighting, whether it's on the local level, the state level, or the federal level, to ensure everyone has access to food, nutritious food. So please continue the pressure on all of us, myself included, because we must fight to ensure all New Yorkers have access to food. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for joining us, Senator. Assemblywoman Szilagyi, what about you? What's the call to action you have?
First, support your local farmers. It's important to buy local food, and also with the holiday season coming up, excellent opportunity to support local businesses and local farms. In addition, so talking about legislation, we're pre-filing all our bills. So if you have a state legislator, or you all have state legislators, I would encourage you to reach out and make sure that they sign on to all the bills that deal with food insecurity. So it's important that we have that legislative support. Second, we need to bring more stakeholders into the conversation. So any opportunity that you have from now until the end of budget, engage folks. You know, when you're shopping in your supermarket, or if you're at the local coffee shop, make sure that you're engaging folks and letting them know opportunities to have input and to talk to their legislators about food insecurity. And then lastly, we're going to need you to help advocate. So whether it's coming to Albany or visiting district offices, it's important that you're vocal. They always say the hush mouth doesn't get fed. And so if you're not advocating and you're not, talking and bringing up the issue, it's going to fall to the waistline. So keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. And just keep, pushing up the questions and talking to your colleagues about this, not only locally, but also state and federal legislators.
Assemblywoman Szilagyi, Senator Prasad, Senator Hinchey, thank you all for joining us here today and sharing your perspectives on how New York State can lead on the issues of hunger and food insecurity. We appreciate all of your work on behalf of New York families and look forward to working together in the year ahead. This concludes our panel of elected officials. We appreciate everyone joining us here today. Before we let you go, we just have one homework assignment for folks. We know Governor Hochul and the New York State Legislature need to hear directly from you and your community if we're going to see these initiatives included in next year's budget. To make your voices heard, we've put together a very simple call to action that allows you to send a quick, customizable message directly to your representatives and the governor. You can scan the QR code on your screen here to join our petition. We'll also be sharing the link in our follow-up email, so please feel encouraged to share that link with your respective networks. Thank you again. This concludes our second annual Forum on Hunger and Food Insecurity. Remember, together we can end hunger and poverty in New York State. Thanks again for joining us today.